Blackjack by Rudyard Kipling. Narrated by Robin Nixon. To the wake of Timhara came company. All St. Patrick's Alley was there to see. Robert Buchanan. As the three musketeers share their silver, tobacco and liquor together, as they protect each other in barracks or camp, and as they rejoice together over the joy of one, so do they divide their sorrows. When Ortheris's impressible tongue has brought him into cells for a season, or Leroyd has run amok through his kit and accoutrements, or Mulvaney has indulged in strong waters, and, under their influence, reproved his commanding officer, you can see the troubles in the faces of the untouched too, and the rest of the regiment know that comment or jest is unsafe. Generally the three avoid orderly room and the corner shop that follows, leaving both to the young bloods who have not sown their wild oats. But there are occasions. For instance, Ortheris was sitting on the drawbridge of the main gate of Fort Amara with his hands in his pockets and his pipe, bowl down, in his mouth. Leroyd was lying at full length on the turf of the glacis, kicking his heels in the air, and I came round the corner and asked for Mulvaney. Ortheris spat into the ditch and shook his head. "No good seeing him now," said Ortheris. "He's a blooming camel, listen." I heard on the flags of the veranda opposite to the cells, which are close to the guard-room, a measured step that I could have identified in the tramp of an army. There were 20 paces, crescendo, a pause, and then 20 diminuendo. "That's him," said Ortheris. "My God, that's him. All for a blooming button you could see a face in and a bit of lip that blooming archangel would have gave back." Mulvaney was doing pack drill, was compelled, that is to say, to walk up and down for certain hours in full marching order with rifle, bayonet, ammunition, knapsack and overcoat, and his offence was being dirty on parade. I nearly fell into the fort ditch with astonishment and wrath, for Mulvaney is the smartest man that ever mounted guard, and would as soon think of turning out uncleanly as of dispensing with his trousers. "Who was the sergeant that checked him?" I asked. "Mullins, of course," said Ortheris. "There ain't no other man would whip him on the peg so. But Mullins ain't a man. He's a dirty little pig-scraper, that's what he is." "What did Mulvaney say?" "He's not the maker man to take that quietly." "Said, been better for him if he'd shut his mouth. Lord, how we laughed. 'Sergeant,' he says, 'you say I'm dirty. Well,' says he, 'when your wife lets you blow your own nose for yourself, perhaps you know what dirt is.' 'You're imperfectly educated, Sergeant,' says he. And then we fell in. But after the parade, he was up and Mullins was swearing himself back of the face at orderly room that Mulvaney had called him a swine, and Lord knows what all. You know Mullins. He'll have his head broke in one of these days. He's too big a blooming liar for ordinary consumption. 3 hours, can and kit," says the Colonel, "not for being dirty on parade, but for having said something to Mullins. Though I do not believe," says he, "you said what you said. And Mulvaney fell away, saying nothing. You know, he never speaks to the Colonel for fear of getting himself fresh copped." Mullins, a very young and very much married sergeant, whose manners were partly the result of innate depravity and partly of imperfectly digested board school, came over the bridge and most rudely asked Ortheris what he was doing. "Me?" said Ortheris. "Oh, I'm waiting for my commission. Seed it coming along yet?" Mullins turned purple and passed on. There was the sound of a gentle chuckle from the glacis where Leroyd lay. "He expects to get his commission some day," explained Ortheris. "God help the mess that have put their hands in the same kiddie as him. What time do you make it, sir?" "A 4. Mulvaney'll be out in half an hour. You don't want to buy a dog, sir, do you?" "A pup you can trust. Half rampor by the Colonel's greyhound." "Ortheris," I answered sternly, for I knew what was in his mind. "Do you mean to say that—" "I didn't mean to ask money of you anyhow," said Ortheris. "I'd have sold you the dog good and cheap, but I know Mulvaney'll want something after we've walked him off, and I ain't got nothing, nor he hasn't either. I'd sooner sell you the dog, sir, struth I would." A shadow fell on the drawbridge, and Ortheris began to rise into the air, lifted by a huge hand upon his collar. "Anything but brass," said Leroyd quietly as he held the Londoner over the ditch. "Anything but brass, Ortheris. My son, I've got 1 rupee, 8 annas of my own." He showed 2 coins, and replaced Ortheris on the drawbridge rail. "Very good," I said. "Where are you going to?" "I'm going to walk him off when he comes out, 2 miles or 3 or 4, said Ortheris. The footsteps within ceased. I heard the dull thud of a knapsack falling on a bedstead, followed by the rattle of arms. 10 minutes later, Mulvaney, faultlessly dressed, his lips tight, and his face as black as a thunderstorm, stalked into the sunshine on the drawbridge. Leroy and Ortheris sprang from my side and closed in upon him, both leaning toward, as horses lean upon the pole. In an instant they disappeared down the sunken road to the cantonments, and I was left alone. Mulvaney had not seen fit to recognise me, so I knew that his trouble must be heavy upon him. I climbed one of the bastions and watched the figures of the 3 musketeers grow smaller and smaller across the plain. They were walking as fast as they could put foot to the ground, and their heads were bowed. They fetched a great compass round the parade ground, skirted the cavalry lines, and vanished in the belt of trees that fringes the low land by the river. I followed slowly and sighted them, dusty, sweating, but still keeping up their long, swinging tramp on the river bank. They crashed through the forest reserve, headed toward the bridge of boats, and presently established themselves on the bow of one of the pontoons. I rode cautiously till I saw 3 puffs of white smoke rise and die out in the clear evening air, and knew that peace had come again. At the bridgehead they waved me forward with gestures of welcome. "Tie up your horse," shouted Ortheris, "and come on, sir. We're all going home in this here blooming boat." From the bridgehead to the forest officer's bungalow is but a step. The messman was there, and would see that a man held my horse. Did the Sahib require aught else, a peg or beer? Richie Sahib had left 6 bottles of the latter, but since the Sahib was a friend of Richie Sahib, and he, the messman, was a poor man, I gave my order quietly and returned to the bridge. Mulvaney had taken off his boots and was dabbling his toes in the water. Leroy was lying on his back on the pontoon, and Ortheris was pretending to row with a big bamboo. "I'm an old fool," said Mulvaney, reflectively, "dragging you 2 out of here because I was under the black dog, sulking like a child. Me that was soldiering when Mullins, and be damned to him, was squealing on counterpin for 5 shillings a week, and not paid. Oh, boys, I took you 5 miles out of natural perversity. Off you." "What's the odds so long as you're happy?" said Ortheris, applying himself afresh to the bamboo. "As well here as anywhere else." Leroy held up a rupee, and ate an a bit, and shook his head sorrowfully. 5 mile from the canteen, all along of Mulvaney's blasted pride." "I know it," said Mulvaney penitently. "Why will you come with me? And yet I would be mortal sorry if you did not, any time. Though I am old enough to know better. I will do penance. I will take a drink of water." Ortheris squeaked shrilly. The butler of the forest bungalow was standing near the railings with a basket, uncertain how to clamber down to the pontoon. "I knowed you'd have got liquor out of the blooming desert, sir," said Ortheris, gracefully to me. Then to the messman, "Easy with them there bottles. They're worth their weight in gold. Jock, you long-armed beggar, get out of that and hark 'em down." Leroy had the basket on the pontoon in an instant, and the 3 musketeers gathered round it with dry lips. They drank my health in due and ancient form, and thereafter tobacco tasted sweeter than ever. They absorbed all the beer, and disposed themselves in picturesque attitudes to admire the setting sun, no man speaking for a while. Mulvaney's head dropped upon his chest, and we thought that he was asleep. "What on earth did you come so far for?" I whispered to Ortheris. "To walk him off, of course. When he's been checked, we always walks him off. He ain't fit to be spoke to these times, or he ain't fit to leave alone neither. So he takes him till he is." Mulvaney raised his head and stared straight into the sunset. "I had me rifle," said he dreamily, "and I had me bayonet, and Mullins come round the corner, and he looked at me face and grinned despiteful. 'You can't blow your own nose,' says he. Now, I cannot tell what Mullins' experience may have been, but mother of God, he was nearer to his death that minute than I've ever been to mine, and that's less than the thickness of a hair." "Yes," said Ortheris calmly, "you'd look fine with all your buttons took off, and the band in front of you walking round slow time. We're both front rank men, me and Jock, when the regiment's in Hollow Square. Blooming fine you'd look. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh. Easy with that there, Drob. Blessed be the name of the Lord." He gulped in a quaint and suggestive fashion. "Mullins, what's Mullins?" said Leroy slowly. "Take a company of Mullins in my hand behind me. Say them, Mulvaney, don't be a fool. Ye were not checked for what you did not die, and made a mock of it after. 'Twas for less than the Tyrone would have sent O'Hara to hell, instead of letting him go by his own choosing, when Rafferty shot him," retorted Mulvaney. "And who stopped Tyrone from doing it?" I asked. "That old fool who's sorry he didn't stick to Pig Mullins." His head dropped again. When he raised it, he shivered and put his hands on the shoulders of his 2 companions. "You've walked the devil out of me, boys," said he. Ortheris shot out the red-hot dottle of his pipe on the back of the hairy fist. "They say hell's hotter than that," said he, as Mulvaney swore aloud. "You be warned so. Look yonder." He pointed across the river to a ruined temple. "Me and you and him," he indicated me by a jerk of his head, "was there one day when he made a blooming show of myself. You and him stood me doing such, and he was only wishful for the dessert. You're making a bigger blooming show of yourself." "Oh, don't mind him, Mulvaney," I said. "Dinah Shadd would let you hang yourself out yet a while, and you don't intend to try it either. Let's hear about the Tyrone and O'Hara. Rafferty shot him for fooling with his wife. What happened before that?" "There's no fool like an old fool. You know you can do anything with me when I'm talking. Did I say I would like to cut Mullen's liver out? I deny the imputation, for fear that authoress here would report me. You would tip me in the river, would you? Sit quiet, little man. Anyways, Mullen's not worth the trouble of extra parade, and I will treat him with outrageous contempt. The Tyrone and O'Hara. O'Hara and the Tyrone, begad, old days are hard to bring back into the mouth, but they're always inside the head." Followed a long pause. "O'Hara was a devil, though I received him for the honour of the regiment for his death at that time. I say it now, he was a devil, a long, bold, black-haired devil." "Which way?" asked Otheris. "Women, then I know another." "Not more than in reason, if you mind me, you warped walking stick. If I've been young'un, for why should I not have took what I could? Did I ever, when I was with Corporal, use the rise of me rank, when stopped and taken away more than the sorrows and the fault of me, to prosecute a nefarious intrigue, as O'Hara did? Did I, when I was a corporal, lay me spite upon a man and make his life a dog's life from day to day? Did I lie, as O'Hara lied, till the young ones in the Tyrone turned white, with the fear of the judgment of God killing them all in a lump, as it killed the woman at Devizes? I did not. I have sinned me sins, and I have made me confession, and Father Victor knows the worst of me. O'Hara was tuck, before he could speak, on Rafferty's doorstep, and no man knows the worst of him, but this much I know. The Tyrone was recruited any fashion in the old days, a draft from the Connemara, a draft from Portsmouth, a draft from Kerry, and that was a blazing bad draft here, there, and everywhere. But the large of him was Irish, black Irish. Now there are Irish and Irish. The good are good, as the best, but the bad are worse than the worst. 'Tis this way. They clug together in pieces as fast as thieves, and no one knows what they will do, till one turns informer and the gang is broke. But it begins again a day later, meeting in holes and corners and swearing bloody oaths and sticking a man in the back and running away, and then waiting for the blood money on the reward papers to see if it's worth enough. Those are the black Irish, and 'tis they that bring disgrace upon the name of Ireland, and them I would kill, as I nearly killed one once. But to resume, my room, 'twas before I was married, was with 12 of the scum of the earth, the pickings of the gutter. Main men that would neither laugh nor talk nor yet get drunk as a man should. They tried some of their dog's tricks on me, but I drew a line around the cat, and the man that transgressed it went into hospital for 3 days good. O'Hara put his spite in the room. He was my colour sergeant, and nothing could we do to please him. I was younger than I am now, and I took what I got in the way of dressing down and punishment drill with my tongue in my cheek. But I was different with the others, and why I cannot see is except that some men are born mean and go to dirty murder where a fist is more than enough. After a while, they changed their tune to me and was desperate friendly, and 12 of them cousin O'Hara in chorus. "Yeah," says I, "O'Hara's a devil, and I'm not denying it, but as the only man in the world, let him go. He'll be tired of finding our kid fouling our countrymen unproperly kept." "We will not let him go," says they. "Then take him," says I, "and a dash poor yield you'll get for your trouble." "Is he not misconducting himself with Slim his wife?" says another. "She's coming to the regiment," says I, "for what has made you this particular on a sudden? Has he not put his spite in the room full of us? Can we do anything that he will not check us for?" says another. "That's true," says I. "Will you not help us do aught?" says another. "A big bold man like you." "I will break his head upon his shoulders if he puts a hand on me," says I. "I will give him the lie if he says that I'm dirty, and I would not mind ducking him in the artillery troughs if it was not that I'm trying for me stripes." "Is that all you will do?" says another. "Have you no more spunk than that, you blood-drawn calf?" "Blood-drawn I may be," says I, getting back to me cotton, making me line round it, "but you know the man who comes across this mark will be more blood-drawn than me." "No man gives me the name in my mouth," I says. "Understand, I will have no part with you do anything you do, nor will I raise me fist to my superior." "Has anyone coming on?" says I. "They right on move, though I gave him full time, but stood groiling and snarling together at one end of the room." I took off my cap and went out to canteen, thinking no little of myself, and there I grew most undessedly drunk in my legs. Me head was all reasonable. "Hoyligan," I says to a man in E Company that was by way of being a friend of mine, I'm overtook from the belt down. Do you give me the touch of your shoulder to preserve me formation and march me across the grind into the high grass? I'll sleep it off there, says I. And Hooligan, he's dead now, but good he was while he lasted. A walked with me, giving me the touch when I went wide, until we came to the high grass, and me faith, the sky and the earth was fair rolling under me. I made for where the grass was thickest, and there I slip off me lacquer with an easy conscience. He did not desire to come into the books too frequent, me character having been spotless for the good half of a year. When I rised, the drink was dying out on me, and I felt as though a she-cat had littered in me mouth. I had not learned to hold my liquor with comfort in them days. 'Tis little bitter I am now. I will get Hoyligan to pour a bucket over me head, thinks I. And I would have risen, but I heard someone say, Mulvaney can take the blame for it for the backsliding hound he is. Oh, says I, and me head wrong like a guardroom gong. For what is the blame that this young man must take to oblige Tim Volmere? For 'twas Tim Volmere that spoke. I turned on me belly and crawled through the grass a bit at a time to where the speech come from. There was 12 of me rums sitting down in a little patch, the dry grass waving above their heads and the sin of black murder in their hearts. I put the stuff aside to get a clearer view. Oh, what's that? Says one man, jumping up. A dog, says Volmere. You're a nice hand to this job, as I said. Mulvaney will take the blame if it comes to a pinch. 'Tis hard to swear a man's life away, says a young one. Thank you for that, thinks I. Now, what the devil are your peregrines contriving against me? 'Tis as easy as drinking your quart, says Volmere. At 7 or thereon, O'Hara will come across to the market quarters, going to call on Slimmy's wife, the swine. One of us will pass the word to the rum and we'll start the devil and all, and have a shine, laughing and cracking on and throwing our butts about. Then O'Hara will come and give us the order to be quiet. The more by token, because the rum lamp will be knocked over in the larking. He will take the straight road to the inner door where there's a lamp in the veranda, and that'll bring him clear against the light as he stands. He will not be able to look into the dark. One of us will loose off, and a close shot it'll be, and shame to the man that misses. 'Twill be Mulvaney's rifle, she that is at the head of the rack. There's no mistaking, long-stocked, cross-eyed bitch, even in the dark. The thief misnamed me old foreign piece out of jealousy. I was persuaded of that, and it made me more angry than all. But, Volmere goes on, O'Hara will drop in by the time the light's lit again. There'll be some 6 of us on the chest of Mulvaney, crying murder and rape. Mulvaney's cot is near the inn door, and the smoking rifle will be lying under him when we've knocked him over. We know, and all the regiment knows, that Mulvaney has given O'Hara more lip than any man of us. Will there be any doubt at the court-martial? Would 12 honest soldier boys swear away the life of a dear, quiet, sweet-tempered man such as Mulvaney, with his line of pipe clay round his cot, threaten us with murder if we overstepped it, as we can truthfully testify? Mary, mother of mercy, thinks I to myself, it is this to have an unroily number and fists fit to use on the sneaking hinds. The big drops ran down my face, for I was wake with the liquor and had not the full of my wits about me. I laid still and heard them working themselves up to swear my life by telling tales of every time I'd put me mark on one or another, and me faith, they was few that was not distinguished. 'Twas all in the way of fair fight, though, for never did I raise me hand except when they'd provoked me to it. 'Tis all well, says one of them, but how's to do the shooting? For what matter, says Volmere, 'tis Mulvaney will do that at the court-martial. He will so, says the man, but whose hand is to put the trigger in the room? Who'll do it, says Volmere, looking round, but devil a man answered. They began to dispute till Kiss, that was always playing spoil 5, says, try the cards. With that he opened his tunic and took out the greasy palamas, and they all followed with the notion. Deal on, says Volmere, with a big rattling oath, and the black curse of Sheila come to the man who will not do his duty, as the cards say, Amen. Blackjack is the master, says Kiss, dealing. Blackjack, sir, I should expatiate to you, is the ace of spades, which from time immemorial has been intimately connected with battle, murder, and sudden death. Once Kiss dealt, and there was no sign, but the man was white with the workings of their souls. Twice Kiss dealt, and there was a grey shine in their cheeks like the mess of an egg. 3 times Kiss dealt, and they was bly. Have you not lost him, says Volmere, wiping the sweat on them. Let's have done quick. Quick it is, says Kiss, throwing him in the card, and I fell face up on his knee. Blackjack. Then they all cackled with laughing. Duty threepence, says one of them, and Dan chipe at the price. But I could see they all drew a little away from Volmere and left him sitting playing with the card. Volmere says no word for a while, but licked his lips, catways. Then he threw up his head and made the men swear by every oath known to stand by him, not a line in the rum, but at the court-martial that was set on me. He told off 5 of the biggest to stretch me on me cot with the shot was fired, and another man he told off to put out the light, and yet another to load me rifle. He would not do that himself, and that was queer, for 'twas but a little thing considering. Then they swore over again that they would not betray one another, and creep out of the grass in different ways, tie by tie. A mercy it was they did not come on me. I was sick with fear in the pit of my stomach. Sick, sick, sick. After they was all gone, I went back to the canteen and called for a quart to put a third in me. Volmea was there drinking heavy and politeful to me, beyond reason. What'll I die, thinks I to myself when Volmea went away. Presently, the armour sergeant comes in stuffing and crackling and not pleased with anyone, because the Martin Henry being new to the regiment in these days was used to play the mischief with her arrangements. It was a long time before I could get out of the way of trying to pull back the back sights and turning her over after firing, as if she was a Snyder. What tournament do they give me to work with? Says the armour sergeant. Here's Hogan, his nose flat as a table, laid by for a week, and Ivory Company sending their arms in knocked to small shrivings. For what's wrong with Hogan, sergeant? Says I. Wrong, says the armour sergeant. I showed him as though I had been his mother the way of stripping a tinny, and he stripped her clean and easy. I told him to put her again to fire a blank in the blow pit to show her the dirt hung on the grooving. He did that, but he did not put in the pin of the falling block on, of course. When he fired, he was struck by the block jumping clear. Well, for him, 'twas but a blank. A full charge would have cut his eye out. I looked a trifle wiser than a boiled sheep's head. How's that, sergeant? Says I. This way, you blundering man, and don't you be doing it, says he. With that, he shows me a Wester action, the breech of her, all cut away to show the inside, and so pleased was he to grumble that he demonstrated what Hogan had done twice over. And that comes of not knowing the weapon you're provided with, says he. Thank you, sergeant, says I. I will come to you again for further information. You will not, says he. Keep your cleaning rod away from the breech bin or you'll get into trouble. I went outside, and I could have danced with delight for the grandeur of it. They will load me rifle, good luck to them, while I'm away, thinks I. And Buckeye went to the canteen to give them their clear chance. The canteen was filling with men at the end of the day. I made a feign to be far gone and drank, and one by one, all me roomful came and with Volmea. I went away, walking thick and heavy, but not so thick and heavy that anyone could have took me. Sure and true, there was a cartridge gone from me pouch and lying snug in me rifle. I was hot with rage against them all, and I worried the bullet out of my teeth as fast as I could. The room being empty. Then I took my boot and the cleaning rod and knocked out the pin of the falling block. Oh, 'twas music when the pin rolled on the floor. I put it in me pouch and stuck a dab of dirt in the holes in the plate, putting the falling block back. That'll do your business, Volmea, says I, lying easy on the cot. Come and sit on me chest, the whole room of you, and I will take it to me bosom for the biggest devils that ever cheated halter. I would have no mercy on Volmea, his eye, or his life. Little I cared. At dusk they came back, the 12 of them, and they had all been drinking. I was shamming sleep on the cot. One man went outside the veranda, then he whistled, and they began to rage round the room carrying on tremendous. But I never went to hear men laugh as they did, skylarking too. 'Twas like mad jackals. Stop that blasted noise, says O'Hara in the dark, and pop goes the room lamp. I could hear O'Hara running up in the rattling of me rifle in the rack, and the men breathing heavy as they stood round me cot. I could see O'Hara in the light of the veranda lamp, and then I heard the crack of me rifle. She cried loud, poor darling being mishandled. Next minute, 5 men were holding me down. Go easy, I says, what's it all about? Then Volmea on the floor raised a howl you could hear from one end of countenance to the other. I'm dead, I'm butchered, I'm blind, says he. Saints have mercy on me sinful soul. Send for Father Constant. Oh, send for Father Constant and let me go clean. But that, I knew, was not so dead as I could have wished. O'Hara picks up the lamp in the veranda with a hand as steady as a rest. For what damn dog's trick is this of yours, says he, and turns the light on Tim Volmea that was swimming in blood from top to toe. The falling block had sprung free behind a full charge of powder. Good care I took to bite down the brass after taking out the bullet, that there might be something to give it full worth, and it cut Tim from the lip to the corner of the right eye, leaving the eyelid in tatters, and so hopping along the forehead to the hair. 'Twas more of a raking plough, if you'll understand, than a clean cut. Never did I see a man bleed as Volmea did. The drunken sty that he was in pumped the blood strong. The minute the man sitting on me chest heard O'Hara spiking, they scattered each one to his cot and cried out very politeful, What is it, sergeant? What is it? Says O'Hara, shaking Tim. Well and good, you know what is, you skulking ditch-lurking dogs. Get a dooley and take the whimpering Scots away. There'll be more heard of that than of you will care for. Volmea sat up, rocking his head in his hand and moaning for Father Constant. "Oh, be done," says O'Hara, dragging him up by the hair. "You're none so dead you cannot go 15 years for trying to shoot me." "I did not," says Volmia. "I was shooting myself." "That's square," says O'Hara, "for the front of me jacket is black with your powder." He took up the rifle that was still warm and began to laugh. "I'll make your life healthy," says he, "for attempted murder and keeping your rifle on properly. You'll be hanged first and then put under stoppages for 4.15. The rifle's done for," says he. "Why, 'tis my rifle," says I, coming up to look. "Volmia, you devil, what were you doing with her? Answer me that." "Leave me alone," says Volmia. "I'm dying." "I'll wait till you're better," says I, "and then we two will talk out on bridges." O'Hara pitched him into the dolly, none too tender, but all the boys kept by the cats, which was not the sign of innocent men. I was hunting everywhere for me falling block, but not finding it at all. I never found it. "Now will I die?" says O'Hara, swinging the veranda light in his hand and looking down the room. I had hate and contempt of O'Hara, and I have now, dead though he is, but for all that, will I say he was a brave man. He's a basking in purgatory this tide, but I wish he could hear that. When he stood looking down the room of the boys shivered before the eye of him, I knew him for a brave man, and I liked him so. "What'll I die?" says O'Hara again, and we heard the voice of a woman low and soft in the veranda. 'Twas Slimmy's wife come over at the shot, sitting on one of the benches and scarce able to walk. "Oh, Denny dear," says she, "have they killed ye?" O'Hara looked down the room again and showed his teeth to the gum, then he spat on the floor. "You're not worth it," says he. "Light that lamp, ye dogs," and with that he turned away, and I saw him walking off with Slimmy's wife, she trying to wipe off the powder black on the front of his jacket with her handkerchief. "Oh, brave man you are," thinks I, "a brave man and a bad woman." No one said a word for a time. They was all ashamed, past speech. "For what do you think he will die?" says one of them at last. "He knows we're all in it." "Are we so?" says I from me cot. "The man that says that to me will be hurt. I do not know," says I, "what underhand devilment you have contrived, but by what I've seen, I know that you cannot commit murder with another man's rifle, such shaking coward you are. I'm going to sleep," says I, "and you can blow me head off while I lie." I did not sleep, though, for a long time, and can you wonder? Next morning the news was through all the regiment, and there was nothing the men did not tell. O'Hara reports fair and easy that Volmia was come to grief through tampering with his rifle in barracks, all for to show the mechanism. And by my soul, he had the impertinence to say that he was on the spot at the time and could certify that it was an accident. You might have knocked me rumful down with a straw when they heard that. 'Twas lucky for him that the boys was always trying to find out how the new rifle was made, and a lot of them had come up for easing the pull by sticking bits of grass and such in the part of the lock that showed neither trigger. The first issues of the tinners was not covered in, and I myself have eased the pull of mine time and again. A light pull is 10 points on the range to me. "I will not have this foolishness," says the colonel. "I will twist the tail of Volmia," says he. But when he saw him all tied up and grown in the hospital, he changed his will. "Make him an early convalescence," says he to the doctor, and Volmia was made so for a warning. His big bloody bandages and face puckered up to one side did more to keep the boys from messing with the insides of their rifles than any punishment. O'Hara gave no reason for what he'd said, and all my roomful were too glad to inquire, though he put his spite upon them more wearing than before. One day, however, he took me apart, very polite, for he could be that at choosing. "You're a good sodger, though. You're a damned insolent man," says he. "Fair word, Sergeant," says I, "or I might be insolent again." "'Tis not like ye," says he, "to leave your rifle in the rack without the breechpin, for without the breechpin she was when Volmia fired. I should have found the break of it in the eyes of the holes else," he says. "Sergeant," says I, "what would your life have been worth if the breechpin had been in place? For, on me soul, me life would be worth just as much to me if I told you whether it was or 'twas not. Be thankful the bullet was not there," I says. "That's true," says he, pulling his moustache, "but I do not believe that you, for all your lip, was in that business." "Sergeant," says I could hammer the life out of a man in 10 minutes with me fists if that man displeased me, for I am a good soldier, and I'll be threatened as such in while me fists are me own, they're strong enough for all work I have to do. They do not fly back towards me," says I, looking him between the eyes. "You're a good man," says he, looking me between the eyes, and he was a grand-built man to see. "You're a good man," he says, "and I could wish for the pure frolic of it, that I was not a sergeant, or that you were not a privet, and you will think me no coward when I say this thing." "I do not," says I. "I saw you in Volmia mishandle the rifle, but Sergeant," I says, "take the word from me now, speaking as man to man with the stripes off, though it is little right I have to talk, me being what I am by nature. This time you took no harm, and next time you may not. But in the end, so sure as Slim his wife came into the verandah, so sure will ye take harm, and bad harm. Have thought, Sergeant, says I. Is it worth it? You're a bold man, says he, breathing hard. A very bold man, but I am a bold man too. Do you go your way, Private Mulvaney, and I will go mine. We had no further speech then or after, but one by another he drafted the 12 men of me room out into the other rooms and got them spread among the companies, for they was not a good breed to live together in the company officers saw it. They would have shot me in the night, have they known what I knew, but they did not. And in the end, as I said, O'Hara met his death from Rafferty for fooling with his wife. He went his own way too well. Too well. Straight to that affair, without turning to the right or to the left, he went, and may the Lord have mercy on his soul. Amen. Here, said Ortheris, pointing the moral with a wave of his pipe. And this is him who would be a bloomin' Valmere, all for the sake of Mullins and a bloomin' button. Mullins never went after a woman in his life. Mrs. Mullins, she saw him one day. Ortheris, I said hastily, for the romances of Private Ortheris are all too daring for publication. Look at the sun. It's 6:15. Oh, Lord, 3/4 of an hour for 5.5 miles. We'll have to run like Jimmy-O. The three musketeers clambered onto the bridge and departed hastily in the direction of the cantonment road. When I overtook them, I offered them 2 stirrups and a tail, which they accepted enthusiastically. Ortheris held the tail, and in this manner we trotted steadily through the shadows by an unfrequented road. At the turn into the cantonments we heard carriage wheels. It was the Colonel's barouche, and in it sat the Colonel's wife and daughter. I caught a suppressed chuckle, and my beast sprang forward with a lighter step. The 3 musketeers had vanished into the night.